So now we've done our first bit of animating the attitude on this fella, and what we'll notice is we've got that nicer sway through the chest and the hips, and it looks really nice. But when we look at it from here, look what it's doing to the arms. It's kind of messed up the arc of those arms. They look like they're just coming into place and then sort of going straight back out of place when they get to the front. And that's not a very nice arc. So it is the rotation of the chest that has sort of messed that up. So that is something we're going to need to address to make sure those arms are arcing nicely. But we're not going to worry about it yet. Generally speaking, I like to animate from the core out, because anytime you make changes to the core, it affects the extremities. Also, in the case of the hips, since we've rotated those hips forward on the contact pose, what that means is that that leg is no longer as straight as it could be. When these hips were rotated less, that straightens out that leg. See, so everything we do to the core of the body affects what happens to the extremities. So what we're going to do is we're going to table all our animation work on the extremities for right now, because we still have more work to do on the core. So once we're completely done with the core and we're happy with how that body's moving, then we can go in and finish up with the extremities and make them all nice and pretty. Okay, so here's our man with his first little bit of attitude, and we'll hang on to this one too. So we'll keep these play blasts as we go, so we can see the development of him through his process of becoming more and more human. Okay, so now we've done this. Now he's got a little more happiness to him, but now let's really give him some attitude. Attitude, as I said, is usually carried in the head and the shoulders. So we've got this rotate Y happening in the shoulders. Now let's put a little rotate X in there. And that sort of sway there is really what gives people kind of a cocky attitude. So what we want to do is we want to give him, as he comes down on his step, we want to give him this rotate X coming down. Okay, so what we feel is as he comes down on his step that he's rotating down, and then as he comes back off of it, he's rotating back up. Now, since he's going to be coming down on every step, this is a cycle that's going to be repeated twice as often as the others. So what's happening on frame 5 is also going to happen on frame 21. And now, since it's going to be a pretty smooth cycle coming through, we'll just do something like this, just to give it a little bit more of a natural feel. Okay, and then we want to match these with their counterparts. Okay, and so whatever is happening on 17 is going to be happening on 1 and 33. So we'll pick these up, bring them up to about there. Mess with the tangents to make them pretty, and then now we'll just take a look at that and see what it looks like. So he's kind of got a little bit of that thing, but it doesn't feel like the timing is quite in the right place. It feels like it's coming a little early. We want that rotation on the chest to happen more as he's coming up off his step. So let's just try pushing the whole thing back 2 frames and see what that does. Now we need to make sure that the pre-infinity curve is cycling. So now let's just take a look at it. Feels kind of alright. Let's try play blasting it and see what it looks like in real time. Alright, looks good. Aha, I thought so. Now if you'll notice, the rotate X seems good, but it feels like something weird's happening in that rotate Y. And if you look, you'll see somehow, I think when I dragged onto frame 21 and hit S, I forgot that was going to key everything. So what I should have done was drag it and then just right click on rotate X just to key that. So all I need to do is blow away this key, and that should take care of that. Okay, so now So now our man feels like he's got a little bit more attitude there. Feels pretty good. But if you'll notice, as far as pinning goes, his head is pinned to his chest. That whole thing is happening just as one big piece. So let's unpin that head from his chest and put a little drag in the head. So basically, as far as drag goes, drag tends to work from the core out. And since the chest is closer to the core, it's going to be ahead of the head. And that's sort of basically the way drag is. If you'll notice, the hand is following the elbow, which follows the shoulder. So the farther out from the core you get, the later in time the body part moves. So let's get that head doing the same kind of thing as the chest, but pushed back in time, so we really get this sense of overlap and the sense that the body is really moving organically. Okay, now the chest is at its peak of rotation at 23. So what we can do is we can pick this head. Actually, let's pick the neck, because sometimes with some rigs, when you rotate the head, it just sort of collapses in on itself like that. But if you pick the neck, then you sort of get a little bit more of a natural feel to it. And then if we want to add any more animation on just the head on top of that, we still have that option. So the neck, we can just match it to the chest. So the chest is at its top. Why don't we do this? Why don't we select the chest, shift select the head, isolate the chest, rotate X, and the head, I'm sorry. Why don't we select the chest and shift select the neck, isolate the chest, rotate X, and the head, rotate X, and just sort of match them up. That's easily enough done. Oh, that's right, the whole thing was pushed back 2 frames. So what I can do is I can take all these, push them back 2 frames, etc., etc., etc. Actually, instead of doing that, why don't I just Control Z all the way back, put this thing back like this, and then just take the entire neck, push the whole thing back 2 frames. I think that would be a little easier. Okay, now we can reselect the chest, and this whole thing is going to make a little more sense to push around. So we'll just do something like this. And again, this doesn't need to be an exact science. It doesn't really matter because we're going to be messing with these curves a lot. So we've got something that's relatively close. We just want to view pre-infinity. So now all we want to do is we just want to take this head or this neck and push it, let's say 2 frames back, and see what that does. So now what you notice is at this point here where the head is opening up like this, the chest is already starting to come down before the head does. Actually, maybe we could even accentuate that a little bit more by maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 more. 4 frames is a lot, but let's just see how it looks. 4 frames, yeah, that's a little too much. Let's try 3. So now we really feel that what that head is really doing. We're getting that swagger from the chin, and the head is no longer connected in that way. I think we could even give him more attitude by when he picks his head up. Let's pick his head way up, which in this case is the bottom of the curve. So let's grab the bottom of the curve and really push it. See what it does when it starts acting like that. And that is the beauty of animating on the computer, is you can really do so much so quickly just by messing with some lines to really change the feel of everything. Oh yeah, I'm bad. So, I'm not quite sold on it. That feels probably like a little too much, but I think maybe what we can do is bring it down from the bottom of his curve. Okay, so that's sort of starting to feel like he's really got something to say. It's probably still a little too much. It looks maybe just a little silly. So let's just ease up on it a bit. And this is a process of animation that I tend to like to do. I like to go for more extreme movements to really get the attitude across so we can really feel what he's doing, and then kind of chip away at it from there. Okay, now what you'll also notice too is that this curve is not exactly symmetrical through all of its through through all of its curves. So let's just try to now make it that way. Okay. So we're just going to want to make sure that the curves are all kind of matching the numbers that they're supposed to match, so it's even. In this case, it's usually the number that it's always on a 32 frame cycle. The matching number is 16 off. So we want 22 and 6 and 38 to all match. So we just want to bring 22 down to about there. We want 14 and 30 to match, so we want to bring 30 down a little bit. We want 10 and 26 to match. That looks pretty good. And we also want the tangents to match too, so can't forget the importance of that. 18 and 34 look good. 22 and 38 look good. Okay, that looks like a pretty good curve. And now it's really looking smooth and nice. Okay, let's just try. Now that we've got the nicer curve going, let's just try pushing it back again another 2 frames. Now that it's that far back, it's counter animating against itself. If I pick both the rotations, they're almost completely opposite, which is why we sort of lose any sense that his head's really rotating at all, because it's moving against itself. So let's take this head and push it back the 2 frames. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, we'll go with that. So now let's put a little bit of animation on the head itself. So this is what we call a layered animation. It's kind of like layering through the spine B and the chest, taking lesser amounts of the same animation and dividing it up over 2 different body parts. It's the same way with the neck and the head. We can put our rotate X in the neck and we can put our rotate Y in the head. So what we want to do is we want to pick the head and we want to pick the chest, and so we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to take the chest rotate Y and put that on the head. So we've isolated both of these. So now we just want to sort of do the same thing. Something kind of like this. And then again, we're going to blow away the keys we don't need, which is these. Flatten the tangents so they move smoothly through the cycle, and then push the head animation back. 2 frames seems to be about right. Let's try 3 just to be crazy. All right. So now he's not just going just in front of him. Now he's doing it to everybody he sees on either side of him. But I am going to push it back so it's just a 2 frame overlap because it feels a little too pushed. Okay, so I like that, but it still feels a little too sticky. It still feels like the head and the chest are sort of operating still a little bit too close with each other. Still feels a little robotic. That's a problem that we run into a lot with rigs like this, where the character is really bulky and muscly on top. It's really hard to open these rigs up. So I'm just going to layer another rotate X on top of the head. So what I can do in this case is I can take the rotate X of the head and the rotate X of the neck and do the same thing and just copy the same kind of animation here. So we're going to want to push the head, I think, back 2 frames, I think it is. Now I'm control selecting. Nope, it was 1 frame. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do that, do this, sort of match them up. I could, if I wanted to, even just blow away these keys in the middle because they're not really doing a whole lot. They're right in the middle, but we'll just leave them in for now. Flatten the tangents, and then let's push this head rotate back maybe just 1 more frame. And now I want to go in, and again, to widen, to stretch this, it's Shift Alt left middle mouse, and then dragging left and right squashes it this way, and dragging up and down squashes it this way. So, or you can always hit F. But then when I'm comparing cycles, I want to squash them really tight, so it's easier for me to see how these lines match up so there's no popping in the cycle. Okay. Alright, even that out. Now let's take... So now we've really kind of opened up this head. Now he's really got something to say. He feels pretty confident. Okay, so let's... Will I get the right one? Wrong again. I can never remember this stuff. Alright, so now let's take a look at this play blast here. So now we can compare this play blast to this play blast. Now you can really see the difference in the attitude of that fella. And now if we compare it to this first one, I mean it's not even the same person walking. There's the same kind of feel through the torso and the limbs, but once you start to throw in that little bit of animation with the head, he just becomes a different person. So, I'm sorry, let me get that on there so you can see all three. Okay, so this guy here is basic walk, nothing to it. This guy here, a little bit of shoulders, and this guy here. Now we're really feeling like what kind of person he is. And that's really the essence of animation, is giving inanimate objects personality. Animation itself means breathing life into something. But for the purposes of acting for movies or TV shows or video games, I mean, this character has life, but not a whole lot of it. He looks kind of like a robot. This character has a little bit of life. Now we feel like what he's like as a person, but not too much. And now this guy here, he's really got some life to him. We know what he's thinking. We know how he feels. And that is really what the essence of animation is all about, is communicating to the audience what the characters themselves are thinking and feeling. And as we go through this series, we're going to get much more into acting and showing the thought process of the character and how animators do that, how animators put a brain in a character and show how they think.